Powerful World War II hidden soil secrets for massive food production. For the soil factor community, where we grow smarter, not just bigger. There was a time when fertilizer factories were bombed, imported food disappeared, and entire nations faced hunger overnight. During the Second World War, millions of ordinary people, not scientists, not commercial farmers, were forced to grow nearly all their food at home. And they succeeded. Not by chemicals, not by fancy equipment, but by mastering soil. The amazing part: most of those methods quietly disappeared after cheap synthetic fertilizer became normal. Yet those forgotten techniques can still outperform modern gardening when done right, especially in tough soils, small plots, or hot climates. Today, I want to walk with you through the real wartime soil strategies that turn tiny backyard plots into food factories. These are not myths. They are practical systems you can start using this season. The first secret: feed the soil before you feed the plant. During the war, fertilizers were rationed heavily. Gardeners quickly learned a hard lesson. Feeding plants directly was inefficient. Feeding soil life multiplied results. Instead of asking what nutrient is missing, they asked what life is missing. So they built soil ecosystems. They buried kitchen scraps, paper, weeds, leaves, manure, and even small branches directly into the ground months before planting. Not compost piles first, straight into trenches. The microbes did the composting underground, and roots grew into it later. Why this worked so well? The soil stayed moist. Nutrients released slowly, and most importantly, roots expanded aggressively, searching for decomposing organic matter. This created deeper plants with stronger growth and far higher yields. To use this today, dig a trench about a spade deep in your bed. Fill it halfway with chopped organic waste, weeds, dry leaves, vegetable scraps, cardboard, even shredded newspaper. Then cover with soil. Plant above it after 2 to 4 weeks, or immediately for larger crops like tomatoes or pumpkins. You are not fertilizing. You are building a living pantry underground. The trench method, sometimes called the wartime fertilizer factory, was quite a revelation, you know. One of the biggest discoveries during those times was realizing that nutrients don't need to be everywhere in the soil, only where the roots are likely to travel. So, instead of spreading compost all over the garden, they focused fertility in narrow bands. Gardeners would dig long feeding trenches and plant their rows directly above them. Roots would follow that nutrient strip like a highway, really. The result? Well, plants grew larger while using less organic matter. In modern terms, they accidentally stumbled upon precision nutrient placement decades before modern agriculture caught on. If you give this a try with crops like maize beans, tomatoes, cabbage, or even Sukuma wiki, you'll notice something rather surprising. The plants right next to the trench grow almost twice as fast as those in soil that's been amended evenly. Why does that happen? Well, roots naturally prefer rich pathways. They tend to expand toward areas of abundance. This way, you save yourself a bit of labor and actually increase your harvest. Exactly what those wartime growers were after. Now, let's talk about the power of what some folks call ugly compost. These days, a lot of gardeners think compost has to look perfect, black, fine, and completely broken down. But wartime growers, well, they didn't have that sort of luxury. They made use of half-rotted compost all the time. And, quite often, it actually performed better. You see, half-decomposed material releases nutrients over a longer period, while fully decomposed compost gives it all up quickly, then fades away. But crops like maize, potatoes, pumpkins and tomatoes, they feed for months on end. So they learned something pretty profound. Fresh organic matter feeds the soil life, while old compost feeds plants, but only for a short while. The best garden beds used layers, a bit fresh, a bit old. That way, everyone gets what they need, when they need it. Try this. Before planting heavy feeders, dig holes and mix a combination of fresh plant waste and finished compost together in the planting zone. You'll see steady growth instead of a fast start and then a slow finish. Dense planting was not a mistake. It was strategy. Many old photos show wartime gardens planted extremely close together. Today, we're taught spacing rules, but those rules were designed for mechanized farms. Home growers discovered dense planting changed soil behavior. Close leaves shaded the soil. Shade preserved moisture. Moisture kept microbes alive. Microbes fed plants continuously, so plants supported each other. Instead of competing, they cooperated because the soil environment improved. This is especially powerful in hot regions where exposed soil dies quickly. The goal isn't just plant spacing, it's soil protection. Try reducing spacing slightly for leafy crops and observe the soil after midday heat. If it stays cool, you're growing soil, not just plants. During the war, water was, really limited in many areas, so gardeners discovered that shallow watering actually weakened crops. Light watering encouraged roots to stay near the surface, where heat and dryness could really stress them out. So they changed tactics. They watered deeply, but not often. Afterward, they mulched heavily with anything they could find: grass, paper, straw, even leaves. The topsoil would stay dry, while the lower soil remained moist. Roots would follow the moisture downward and, become much more drought-resistant. This is, honestly, still one of the most powerful techniques you can use today. Deep watering trains your plants to survive long dry periods without needing daily attention. If your plants wilt every afternoon, the problem is usually shallow roots, not a lack of water. There's a hidden role of wood in those massive harvests, Because fertilizers were scarce, people buried wood everywhere. Not just logs for raised beds, but sticks, twigs and branches inside planting areas. Over several months, the wood would absorb water like a sponge and slowly release it back into the soil. It also became a home for fungi. And fungi, they unlocked nutrients locked in soil minerals that fertilizers could never reach. That's why wartime potato and pumpkin harvests were often shockingly large, even in poor soils. To use this today, just bury woody material beneath your heavy feeders. It'll act as a long-term moisture and nutrient battery, Your garden, it becomes more productive with each season, instead of declining. Mixed cropping was soil engineering, not just tradition. Beans with maize, cabbage with onions, carrots between lettuce. These combinations, they were not random tradition. They stabilized soil biology. Different roots feed different microbes. More microbes means faster nutrient cycling, and faster cycling means continuous plant feeding. Monocrops exhaust soil life quickly, but mixed crops recharge it. You don't need complex patterns, honestly. Simply avoid planting large, single-species blocks. Even alternating rows, it dramatically improves performance. This isn't about pests. It's about underground diversity. Why these methods still beat modern gardening? You see, modern gardening often focuses on adding nutrients repeatedly. But wartime gardening, well, it focused on storing nutrients underground. That single difference, it really does change everything. Stored fertility feeds crops continuously, buffers heat, protects roots, reduces watering, and builds resilience. Applied fertility, on the other hand, feeds briefly, then disappears. When you understand this, gardening becomes easier each season instead of harder. You stop chasing problems because the soil solves them. Bringing it all together in your garden. Start small. Choose one bed and turn it into a living soil system. Bury organic matter below. Plant above feeding zones. Mix fresh and old compost. Mulch heavily. Water deeply. Grow multiple crops together. Add buried wood for long-term moisture. Within one season, you will notice thicker stems, darker leaves, and slower drying soil. Within 2 seasons, you will notice something even more powerful. Your garden begins producing reliably even when conditions are poor. That was the real Victory Garden secret. Not just growing food during good times, but guaranteeing food during bad times. And that's exactly the kind of gardening we need today. If this changed how you see soil, you're already part of the Soil Factor family. Subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive, and share this with a fellow gardener. Because the more people who rebuild their soil, the more food security we all create together.